While people are still debating over calling esports a sport, the world moved on to more bizarre ideas to entertain itself. Here are the top 12 new professional sports that will blow your mind. Most of these sports may seem bizarre at first, but don't go by their initial impressions. They may seem fairly new, and while some of them haven't yet clearly evolved, they nonetheless have a lot of competency and skill involved. Having largely emerged from already existing conventional sports, these sports seek to reform the traditional games we love spectating in innovative, thrilling ways. Perhaps you haven't heard of some of these before. Let us know in the comments below. People often engage in mainstream adventure sports like rafting, diving, or mountaineering for recreation and thrill, but there are some professionals who are already taking it to the next level. Mountain unicycling is a relatively new phenomenon which is a lot more thrilling than the conventional adventure sports. If roaming through steep valleys and rocky hills on mountain bikes was not thrilling enough for you, you might want to sit on a unicycle and attempt the same feats. While it's largely used for recreation, mountain unicycling has some serious risks involved. Since unicyclists do not have the ability to steer themselves using their hands, maneuvering becomes even riskier, and with the added pressure of having to balance, they have to be even more careful about potential skidding, toppling over rocks, and losing balance on steep turns. Hockey on a unicycle is yet another development sportspersons are engaging in. Similar to the recreational sport of mountain unicycling, this involves a traditional hockey match with the same guidelines but with the players mounted on unicycles. While it may not be as renowned as traditional ice hockey, the unicycle hockey players are equipped with the same skills, and perhaps more. The players have to have exemplary balancing skills to be able to do the same things a traditional hockey player does, but on a unicycle. This involves everything from dribbling, shooting, dodging, and changing stances rapidly, all while maintaining control over the puck. Both these sports, unicycle hockey and mountain unicycling, are governed by the International Unicycling Federation, which was established in 1982 in New York. The biennial event UNICON hosts all unicycling championships under the supervision of one umbrella organization, the IUF, and you'll be surprised to know that this event includes other unicycling sports like basketball, high jump, and long jump too. Founded by two brothers, Christian and Damien DeVoe, this sport takes the playground classic to the next levels. The World Chase Tag involves an old-fashioned game of tag with 20-second rounds in not-so-old-fashioned environments. WCT championships involve fast-paced tag matches which come with a major catch. The chaser and the evader have to step into an arena full of obstructions, which means free-running skills are a necessity. In an interview, Damien revealed that because of added obstacles, 90% of athletes in this sport are actually parkour enthusiasts, meaning it's not a sport for everybody. Amateurs can seriously injure themselves if they don't possess the agility required to engage in swift movements. Being a relatively new phenomenon which was primarily popularized through YouTube, Christian DeVoe says that this sport generates great viewership among millennials and has faith that it will soon become a global league. In simplified terms, BOSSABALL is like volleyball on trampolines and inflatables. This Spanish sport seems to be a mere fun activity, but don't mistake it as an easy sport to master. A typical game involves traditional volleyball rules, but with the added requirements of outstanding trampoline skills. There's constant movement in the form of jumps and dives, and a great level of aerobic capacity is a must for players. This game has stringent rules and 3 referees, exactly as it's seen in volleyball. BOSSABALL involves intense rallies of passing the ball back and forth and keeping it from falling still, all while being in constant motion. The arena has boundaries and there are rules governing scoring. Points can be earned by scoring or because of an opponent's error. BOSSABALL athletes claim that the aim is all about combining sports, music, and positive vibes, and it's gained popularity all over the world because of its recreational nature. Brazil, Argentina, Portugal, and Qatar are some of the nations who have adopted this sport, and beach lovers all over the world are especially familiar with it. As you could guess by the name, this sport tests woodsmen and their craftsmanship. It's a perfect example of a laborious activity being converted into a sport, with another example being the strongman log challenges seen in bodybuilding competitions. Still, timber sports has been around since 1985, and the first broadcasts reportedly took place from a field in Wisconsin, USA. European nations too started to compete 2001 onward, but this sport has more historical significance than that. Way back in the 18th century, Australian loggers would compete against each other, pushing their endurance, agility, and technique to the absolute limits. They would get off work to have friendly matches against each other, and now the spectators watch in awe as crafted woodsmen smash through logs in record times and with great mastery, all in front of a global audience. Through 6 different disciplines, athletes are required to demonstrate excellent stamina and power, but most importantly, technique. Botaoshi is a traditional Japanese capture the flag game, except the flag in this case is actually a vertical pole. This violent game involves an offensive horde of 75 people ramming into another defensive horde of 75 people, all while they try to balance on a vertical human pyramid, fighting to keep their pole upright. Since excessive physical contact is permitted, the attackers end up kicking several defenders in the face just to get to the pole. After reaching the pole, they hang off of it to lower it. One can think of this as a combination of gymnastics and American football, and a lot more dangerous than either of them. This sport is not expected to feature in the Olympics anytime soon because of its nature and the scale of matches. It's difficult to accommodate one team of 150 people. The game's origins are mysterious, but it's thought to have been developed by the Japanese militia around 1945. Today, the brutal sport is played by cadets from the National Defense Academy of Japan, but more surprisingly by teenage school students on sports days and athletic meets. While you may be familiar with perhaps RC car races, you may be surprised to find out that drone races are a huge phenomenon too. The World Drone Prix in Dubai lets the winning team walk home with $250,000. It's the event for tech-savvy thrill seekers. As seen in Formula One racing, every team has a technical crew which oversees drone maintenance and is well-versed in advanced mechanics. Different from conventional toy drones, these racer drones are equipped with state-of-the-art technology and an extremely light chassis to enable faster speeds and precise maneuvering. The races take place along a well-lit track which could resemble roller coaster tracks, and the drones are required to fly as close to the spine of the track as possible. It requires mastery over drones' flight control systems and good knowledge of aerodynamics. Kabaddi is a form of a contact team sport, and while it isn't regarded as a new sport, it has only recently been given the status of a competitive sport. The All India Kabaddi Federation was established in 1950, and since then it has been growing as a national phenomenon, with a popularity rating which could potentially beat cricket in India. It's most popular in the Asian subcontinent, and takes inspiration from the Westworldly game of tag. Thus, to a Western spectator, it may resemble a classic game of tag, but there are several added technicalities that Kabaddi players are expected to master. It's played between two teams of 7 players, and a raider is supposed to tag as many players of the opposing team as possible, but all in a single breath without being tackled by the opponents. That's perhaps the biggest differentiating factor from tag. The exact origins of this incredibly strenuous sport are unknown. While some suspect it to have emerged from ancient India, others argue it originated from Iranian regions. Sepak RAKRAW has become such a popular spectacle that a lot of Southeast Asian countries debate over the origins of this sport, each proudly claiming it to be their own. In layman's terms, this is highly advanced volleyball because players are only permitted to use their feet to hit the ball. It involves a constant showdown of backflips and rainbow kicks you may commonly see in football. While this is a fairly new sport in the competitive arena, it's been around since the 15th century. A surprising fact is that the first set of rules were drafted way back in 1829 by a sports association in Thailand. This sport has immense cultural significance. In fact, the murals at the Emerald Buddha's temple depict the Hindu god Hanuman playing the game with his troop of monkeys. With such rich and interconnected histories, it's conceivable why every nation claims to have given birth to this sport. Time will tell how global this sport will really become, but it's expected to be featured in the 2024 Olympics. This competition took place at the Sarachev Power Expo, where Russian strongmen kept on slapping each other's faces red until one surrendered. The grand prize was barely 300 pounds. Very little is known about the frequency of this event or the regulations, and believe it or not, this sport does not govern how you smack your opponent. There are no apparent rules, and all you're required to have is an open palm. This sport draws some minor inspiration from boxing, because after every round, the referee is required to inspect the player's condition to determine if they could pass out. This event turned into a global sensation and received immense international news coverage too. Where one would think only brains are involved, now brawl is too. This game is perhaps one of the most bizarre developments that have taken place in sports. It's a mix of boxing and chess, alternating between rounds. It was started off as an art performance by a Dutch artist, Lepe Rubing, who was inspired by a comic book, and now it's established as a popular sport in Germany, India, Russia, and the UK. A typical match consists of 11 rounds, where 6 are for chess and 5 are for boxing. And a victory in either chess or boxing wins and ends the entire contest. It's not easy to be a competitive chess boxer. A chess boxer is required to have mastery in both the respective sports, with a minimum of over 50 bouts in martial arts, an ELO rating of over 1600, and special training in speed chess. It's essential to be well-versed in speed chess because your opponent can win the match if you fail to be within the chess game's time control. The sport is primarily overseen by the World Chess Boxing Organization, which is a non-profit organization based out of Berlin, Germany. A surprising fact is that it's been founded by the Dutch artist himself, Lepe Rubing. Completely unheard of and an unprecedented development in the arena of sporting events was the following. The United States of America Rock Paper Scissors League, or simply the USARPS, was a national-level competition for the popular classroom hand game of rock, paper, scissors. The league was developed by marketer Matty Lashem, who as of 2009 was the commissioner. In April 2006, the world witnessed its very first RPS champion, who competed at the Mandalay Bay Hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada. The event was televised by the A&E network on June 12th. What's surprising is that in just its first run, the champion was awarded a prize of $50,000, which could be called a considerable sum due to the very new nature of the sporting competition. The following year too witnessed a championship, but by now it had gained more popularity, gaining coverage from ESPN2 in July 2007. One of the hosts was Jason Simmons, who's also nicknamed Master Rochambola and regarded as one of the best RPS players. Contestants from all over the states sought to take home the $50,000 cash prize for a sport almost everyone can be expected to have expertise over. This sporting event did turn a few heads, but spectators mostly criticized it by calling it awkward. Any new sport does take time to evolve and grow into a global phenomenon, so nothing can be proclaimed for certain about the future of rock, paper, scissors as a championship. Jason Simmons commented once that this competition is now defunct, but there are talks of localized events still going on in the US.